The transport ship shuddered as it docked with Tartarus 7. Inside the cramped prisoner bay, Taemin sat with his hands bound in energy cuffs that hummed softly in the darkness. Around him, other prisoners whispered in dozens of alien languages, their fear filling the air like smoke. But Taemin remained silent. He had been silent for the entire 3-week journey from the processing center. The doors hissed open. Bright lights flooded the bay and the prisoners flinched. Taemin's eyes adjusted quickly. He saw the guards first. Tall Vrelic soldiers in black armor, their reptilian faces twisted in permanent sneers. Behind them stood the station itself, a massive construct of metal and hatred floating in the void between stars. "Move," a guard shouted, striking the nearest prisoner with an electric baton. The creature, something with 6 legs and gray skin, collapsed, screaming. The other prisoners shuffled forward quickly. Taemin stood and walked at his own pace. One guard moved to strike him, but something made the alien hesitate. Perhaps it was the way Taemin looked at him. Perhaps it was something else. They processed him in a white room that smelled of chemicals and despair. A bored Vrelic clerk scanned his biometric data and frowned at her screen. "Records corrupted," she muttered. "Name?" Taemin, he said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Crime?" "They did not say." The clerk's frown deepened. She tapped her screen several times, then shrugged. "You go to Block 7. Commander Vextar will decide what to do with you." She waved her hand, dismissing him. 2 guards escorted Taemin through the station's corridors. They passed holding cells filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some were huge, with muscles like mountains. Others were small and quick, their eyes glittering with dangerous intelligence. All of them were prisoners of the Vrelic Empire, the great power that had conquered half the known galaxy in the last century, including Earth. Block 7 was the worst section of Tartarus 7. Everyone knew this. It was where they put the prisoners they wanted to break, the ones who needed special attention. The guards threw Taemin into a cell barely large enough for him to lie down. The door slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Taemin sat on the metal bench that served as his bed. He looked around the cell with calm eyes. 3 walls of solid metal, 1 wall of energy bars that would kill him if he touched them, a toilet in the corner, a small drain in the floor. He had seen worse. Across the corridor, something massive moved in the shadows of another cell. Yellow eyes studied him. "Human," a deep voice rumbled. "Fresh meat. You will not last long here." Taemin did not respond. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly, counting his breaths the way he had learned decades ago. In, out, in, out. Each breath was a moment of peace in a galaxy at war. Hours passed, maybe days. Time moved strangely in Block 7, where the lights never truly went off and never became truly bright. Other prisoners shouted and screamed. Some begged. Some threatened. Taemin remained quiet. Jiwoo pushed his cart through the corridor, his hands shaking slightly as they always did in Block 7. He was young, barely 25, with the scared eyes of someone who had seen too much in too little time. The Vrelic had taken him from Earth 5 years ago, put him to work maintaining their prison station. He delivered food, fixed broken equipment, and tried very hard not to be noticed. He stopped at each cell, sliding ration packs through the feeding slots. Most prisoners grabbed them immediately. Some threw the food back at him. The one in cell 47, a Krellian warrior twice his size, always spat at him. Then he reached the new prisoner's cell. Jiwoo looked at the man sitting calmly on his bench. Another human. That was rare. Most humans ended up dead or working, not imprisoned. This one looked ordinary enough. Maybe 40 years old, though it was hard to tell. Short dark hair, lean build, quiet eyes. He wore the standard gray prison uniform. "Food," Jiwoo said, sliding the ration pack through. The man opened his eyes. "Thank you," he said. Jiwoo blinked. Nobody said thank you in Block 7. He started to move on, then noticed something strange. All the other prisoners had gone quiet. The constant noise of Block 7 had stopped. Even the Krellian in cell 47 had backed away from his cell door, pressing himself against the far wall. "Who are you?" Jiwoo whispered. The man smiled slightly. "Just another prisoner." But that night, Jiwoo could not sleep. Something about the new prisoner bothered him. The way the others reacted. The way even the guards seemed nervous around him. Commander Vextar was bored. He sat in his office, watching the security feeds from Block 7 on multiple screens. Torture was entertaining for only so long. Breaking prisoners became routine after a few years. He needed something new. Then he saw the new human. Vextar leaned forward, his reptilian eyes narrowing. The human was exercising in his tiny cell, moving through patterns that looked almost like a dance, but Vextar recognized them. Combat forms. Advanced ones. The human moved with precision that spoke of years of training. Interesting, Vextar said. He pressed a button on his desk. Send the Krellian to the new human cell. Let us see what happens. The guards opened cell 47. The Krellian warrior stepped out, all 3 meters of muscle and rage. His name was Grath, and he had killed 17 prisoners since arriving at Tartarus 7. The guards pointed at Taemin's cell and opened the energy barrier. Grath entered, his lips pulled back in a savage grin. Little human. I will make you scream. Taemin stood slowly. He looked up at the massive alien and said nothing. Grath charged. What happened next took 3 seconds. Taemin moved like water, like shadow, like something that could not be caught. His hand struck Grath's throat. His elbow found a nerve cluster under the Krellian's arm. His foot swept behind the warrior's leg at the exact moment his palm pushed against Grath's chest. The massive alien crashed to the floor, unconscious. Taemin returned to his bench and sat down. In his office, Commander Vextar stared at his screen, his mouth hanging open. Around Block 7, prisoners pressed against their cell doors trying to see, and Jiwoo, who had been checking a power coupling nearby, dropped his tools with a clatter. Later that day, Hana arrived to treat Grath's injuries. She was a medical officer, one of the few humans given limited freedom on the station because of her skills. She had learned long ago not to ask questions, not to care too much, not to hope. But as she scanned the unconscious Krellian, she heard whispers. Did you see? 3 seconds. Who is he? Hana walked to Taemin's cell. The man sat quietly, his eyes closed, breathing steadily. He looked so ordinary, so human, so normal. You should not have done that, she said softly. They will make an example of you. Taemin opened his eyes and looked at her. For a moment, Hana felt like those eyes could see through her. Through the walls, through the station itself, perhaps, he said. That night, as Jiwoo made his final rounds, he heard an old voice calling from one of the darker cells. He turned and saw an ancient Kalvex prisoner, a creature that looked like a praying mantis made of shadows. Boy, the Kalvex whispered. You do not know who that is, do you? That new human? Jiwoo shook his head. The Kalvex's compound eyes glittered in the dim light. That is not just a man, child. That is the executioner. The name meant nothing to Jiwoo, but the way every prisoner in Block 7 went absolutely silent when it was spoken, that meant everything. In his cell, Taemin opened his eyes in the darkness and smiled slightly. The game had begun. Jiwoo could not stop thinking about the name. The executioner. He had heard it before, somewhere in the back of his memory like a half-forgotten dream. That night he lay on his small bunk in the workers' quarters and tried to remember. 3 days later he took a risk. During his maintenance shift he accessed one of the station's old data terminals in a forgotten storage room. His hands shook as he typed search queries into the system. Most files about Earth's conquest were classified. The Vrelic did not like prisoners knowing history, but Jiwoo had learned tricks over 5 years. He found fragments, pieces of reports that had not been properly deleted. Battle logs, commander notes, casualty lists that made his stomach turn. Then he found a single line in a 30-year-old military dispatch. Recommend immediate withdrawal from Sol system. Enemy asset designated the Executioner has destroyed 3 battle fleets. Conventional assault deemed unfeasible. Jiwoo stared at the screen. 3 battle fleets. 1 person. It seemed impossible. He kept searching and found more fragments. A grainy video showed a human figure moving through a Vrelic command ship, leaving unconscious soldiers in his wake. Another report mentioned orbital bombardments being halted because the target cannot be located or contained. A final document, heavily corrupted, ended with the words, "The war is lost. He will kill us all unless we negotiate." But Earth had been conquered. Everyone knew that. The Vrelic Empire controlled humanity's homeworld and all its colonies. So what happened? Jiwoo closed the terminal and hurried back to his duties, his mind racing. In Block 7, Taemin had visitors. They came in the night when most of the station slept. 2 guards opened his cell and led him through empty corridors to a section of the prison he had not seen before. They stopped at a cell with an actual door instead of energy bars. Inside sat an old man with gray hair and scars that told stories of violence. He looked up when Taemin entered, and his weathered face went pale. "No," the old man whispered in Korean. "It cannot be." The guards locked the door and left them alone. Taemin sat on the floor across from the old man. "Hello, Daewon." Daewon's hands trembled. "They said you were dead. After the treaty, after they took Earth, everyone said the executioner had been killed. I let them believe that," Taemin said calmly. "Why?" Daewon's voice broke. "Why did you stop? You were winning. You could have saved us." Taemin was quiet for a long moment. "I was one man, old friend. I could kill their soldiers and destroy their ships, but I could not defeat an empire. Earth had 3 billion people left. The Vrelic were ready to burn every city until I surrendered." He looked at his hands. "So I surrendered. But you are here now. In a prison." "Yes, why?" Taemin smiled that small, quiet smile. "Because there is something in this prison that I need. Something worth 30 years of waiting." Before Daewon could ask more questions, the guards returned and took Taemin back to his cell. Hana made her rounds through the medical bay, treating injuries and trying not to think too hard about how prisoners got them. She had been a doctor on Earth once, back when being a doctor meant saving lives instead of just keeping prisoners alive enough to suffer more. A message appeared on her tablet. Commander Vextar wanted to see her. She found him in his office watching security footage on repeat. The same 3 seconds over and over. Taemin defeating Grath. "Tell me about humans," Vextar said without looking at her. Hana kept her face blank. "What do you want to know?" "Your species is weak, soft. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Yet this one," he pointed at the screen, "moves like a predator." "Explain." "Some humans train for combat," Hana said carefully. "Martial arts. Military conditioning." "This is more than training," Vextar hissed. "I have seen your human soldiers. They die easily. This one is different." Hana said nothing. Vextar turned to face her, his reptilian eyes cold. "Find out who he is, or I will start executing human workers until you do." That night, Hana went to Block 7. She stood outside Taemin's cell, trying to find the courage to speak. Finally, she said, "They are asking questions about you." Taemin opened his eyes. "Let them ask. Commander Vextar will hurt people to get answers. Human people." "I know." "Then tell me who you are," Hana said, her voice rising. "Tell me so I can protect them." Taemin stood and walked to the energy bars. He stopped just before touching them, looking at her with those calm, endless eyes. "I am someone who made a choice 30 years ago. I traded my freedom for humanity's survival. But survival is not living, Doctor. It is time for humanity to live again." "What does that mean?" "It means," Taemin said softly, "that I am exactly where I need to be." High Inquisitor Thelzon arrived at Tartarus 7 with little warning and less patience. He was a member of the Vrelic High Command, one of the Empire's most feared investigators. His ship docked, and he swept through the station like a cold wind, demanding to see Commander Vextar immediately. "You sent a report about the executioner," Thelzon said, his voice sharp as broken glass. Vextar nodded. "I believe we have him in custody." "Impossible. The executioner is a myth, a story the humans told to scare children. Watch." Vexitar played the footage of Taemin defeating Grath. Thelzon watched in silence. Then he watched it again. And again. Finally he said, "Where is he?" They stood outside Taemin's cell. Thelzon studied the human for a long time. Taemin sat on his bench, eyes closed, breathing steadily. He looked like nothing special, like any human in any prison anywhere in the galaxy. "Tell me your name," Thelzon commanded. Taemin opened his eyes. "Taemin, your full designation, your military rank, your unit. I have none of those things anymore." Thelzon's claws scraped against the metal floor. "You think you can hide? I have access to every database in the Empire. I will discover who you are." "I am not hiding," Taemin said. "You already know who I am. That is why you are here." The words hung in the air like smoke. Thelzon stared at the human, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Commander Vextar had different plans. If this human was as dangerous as the legend said, then he would profit from it. The station had illegal fighting rings. places where rich aliens from across the Empire paid to watch prisoners fight to the death. If he put the executioner in the arena, the bids would be astronomical. That night, they dragged Taemin from his cell and threw him into the arena. It was a circular room with walls too high to climb and floors stained with old blood. Around the edges, behind protected glass, wealthy spectators gathered to watch. 4 opponents entered from different doors. A Krellian warrior, a Thorg assassin with blades for arms, a Velkan hunter with acid breath, and something from the dark spaces between stars that had no name in any human language. The crowd cheered. Bets were placed. Vextar smiled from his viewing box. Taemin stood in the center of the arena, unarmed and calm. The Krellian charged first. Taemin sidestepped, using the alien's momentum to send it crashing into the wall. The Thorg came next, blades flashing. Taemin caught one arm, twisted, and the Thorg's own blade punctured its shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to end the fight. The Velkan breathed acid. Taemin had already moved, staying in the creature's blind spot, striking pressure points until it collapsed. The nameless thing from the dark tried to wrap tentacles around him. But Taemin was water, was wind, was shadow. He struck once, twice, and the creature retreated, wounded but alive. 4 opponents. 90 seconds. All defeated. None dead. The crowd went silent. They had come to see death. Instead, they had witnessed something else. Precision, control, mastery so complete it looked easy. In his viewing box, Thelzan stood slowly. He had hoped the reports were exaggerated. He had hoped the executioner was just a skilled soldier, nothing more. But hope was a foolish thing. Jiwoo watched the fight on a maintenance terminal, his heart pounding. Hana stood beside him, her hands covering her mouth. Daewon, in his cell, heard the cheering stop and knew what had happened. All across Block 7, prisoners whispered a single name, the executioner. And in his cell, after they dragged him back bloodied but unbowed, Taemin smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. High Inquisitor Thelzan sent his emergency transmission in the middle of the night. His claws shook as he typed the encryption codes. The message was simple and terrible. The executioner lives, confirmed, requesting immediate fleet support at Tartarus 7. Recommend extreme caution. The response came back within hours. Negative. Maintain observation. Fleet deployment would alert human resistance cells. Contain the situation quietly. Thelzan read the message 3 times. Contain the executioner quietly. It would have been funny if it were not so terrifying. You did not contain a force of nature. You did not contain a legend, but he would try. Taemin sat in his cell and counted the hours. Everything had a pattern if you looked long enough. The guard shifts changed every 8 hours. The food deliveries came twice per day. The maintenance crews worked in 3-hour blocks. And deep in the lower levels of Tartarus 7, in a vault protected by 4-meter-thick walls and enough security to stop an army, sat the quantum cores containing Earth's military AI systems. The Vrelic had stolen them 30 years ago, after the treaty. They thought the technology would help them build better weapons. But the AI cores were designed to bond only with human neural patterns. The Vrelic could not use them, could not crack them, could not even fully understand them, so they locked them away and forgot about them. But Taemin had not forgotten. Far across the sector, in a hidden base carved into an asteroid, Sunmi received the signal she had been waiting 3 decades for. 3 short pulses, then 5 long ones, then 3 short again. He was ready. Sunmi was 58 years old. She had been 28 when Earth fell, had spent 30 years building a resistance network from nothing. 30 years of hiding, of small victories and crushing defeats, of watching her friends die and her hope fade, until 3 months ago, when she received a message from someone she thought was dead. The executioner needs your help, the message had said, and in return he will give us back our teeth. Now she activated communication channels across 3 star systems. All cells prepare for operation. Target priority lists have been uploaded. Strikes begin in 72 hours. Make noise. Make them look away from Tartarus 7. Young Jay had been a security officer on Tartarus 7 for 2 years. The Vrelic trusted him because he was quiet, efficient, and had never caused trouble. They did not know he reported everything he saw to the Resistance. They did not know he had been waiting for this moment since the day he was old enough to understand what the Empire had taken from him. He met Jiwoo in a maintenance tunnel during the shift change. Is it true? Young Jay asked. Is he really the executioner? Jiwoo nodded. I think so. I found old war records. They match. Then we help him. Young-jae pulled out a small data chip. This contains the security protocols for the lower vault levels. I have been copying them for months just in case. He pressed it into Jiwoo's hand. Get this to him. Whatever he is planning, he will need it. Jiwoo stared at the chip. Helping a prisoner escape was death. Helping this prisoner would probably mean something worse than death. He took the chip anyway. Hana was called to Commander Vextar's office again. This time Thelzan was there too, standing in the corner like a shadow made of scales and malice. The human prisoner, Vextar said. You will examine him. Full medical scan. I want to know what makes him different. I cannot force medical examinations, Hana protested. There are rules even here. Thelzan stepped forward. There are no rules for him. Do as you are told, or we will find another human doctor. After we execute you, Hana went to Block 7 with her medical equipment, her heart hammering. She found Taemin sitting as always, calm and centered. When she explained what she had to do, he simply nodded. I understand. Do what you must. She ran the scanners over him, checking bones and organs and blood. Everything came back normal. Completely, perfectly normal. Human baseline in every way. I do not understand, she whispered. You are not enhanced. No cybernetics, no genetic modifications. You are just human. Taemin smiled. That is the secret they never understood. They looked for superhuman abilities. But humanity's strength was never about being super. It was about being thorough. What does that mean? It means I spent 10 years learning every martial art Earth had to offer. It means I studied alien anatomy until I could name every nerve cluster and weak point. It means I trained my mind to calculate angles and timing faster than any computer. He looked at her with those steady eyes. I am not special, Doctor. I am simply very, very good at what I do. Hana returned to Vextar with her results. He is normal. Completely human. Thelzan slammed his claw on the desk. Impossible. The scans do not lie, Hana said quietly. She did not mention what Taemin had told her. Some secrets were worth keeping. Across the sector, Sunmi's resistance cells struck. A supply depot on Vera 3 exploded. A communication relay in the Kelvin system went dark. An Imperial tax collector's ship vanished, never to be seen again. 12 strikes in 6 systems all within the same hour. The Vrelic High Command scrambled. They sent fleets to investigate. They recalled ships from patrol routes. They pulled security forces from quiet sectors to defend important ones, and in doing so, they pulled 3 of the 5 warships guarding Tartarus 7. Young-jae made his move during the confusion. He walked through the security checkpoints with practiced ease, using his access codes to disable cameras and lock doors behind him. He reached the power distribution center and planted a small device behind a cooling unit. In 6 hours, it would cause a cascade failure in the detention blocks. 6 hours would be enough. Jiwoo made his delivery rounds as usual, but this time, when he reached Taemin's cell, he dropped the data chip through the food slot along with the ration pack. Taemin picked it up and nodded once. Jiwoo fled before anyone could see the fear and hope warring on his face. That evening, Daewon had another visitor. Taemin was brought to his cell again, but this time the old soldier noticed something different in his friend's eyes. Purpose. It begins tonight, Taemin said in Korean. What begins? Everything. Taemin leaned forward. The vault in the lower levels. I need you to spread a message to the other human prisoners. In 6 hours, every cell door in Block 7 will open. Tell them to run for the shuttle bays. Tell them the resistance is coming. Daewon's eyes widened. You are going to free everyone? That is madness. This station has 5,000 guards. 4,273, Taemin corrected. I have been counting. And in 6 hours, they will be dealing with 2,000 freed prisoners. They will not have time to stop one man from reaching the vault. But after you get to the vault, then what? You will be trapped. Taemin's smile was cold. I sent a message 3 months ago, old friend. Help is coming. I just need to retrieve what we came for. 30 years ago, Taemin had been a different person. He remembered being a strategist in Earth's combined military. Remembered the day the Vrelic fleets appeared in the sky. He remembered volunteering for the augmentation program because someone had to stop them. The program had been a failure. The genetic modifications did not work on humans the way they worked on other species. There were no super soldiers, no enhanced warriors. Just one very determined man who decided that if he could not be superhuman, he would be perfectly human instead. He trained. He studied. He learned to read battlefield patterns like poetry. He learned to predict enemy movements 6 steps ahead. He learned to turn any environment into a weapon. And when Earth's armies fell, when the cities burned and hope died, he kept fighting. For 6 months, he fought alone. He destroyed ships and killed commanders and made the Vrelic Empire bleed for every kilometer of Earth they took. They called him the Executioner because he had executed their officers, their plans, their confidence. They called him a monster because they could not comprehend how one unenhanced human could cause such destruction. Then they threatened to glass every city on Earth. And he stopped. Because some battles cannot be won through violence. But now, 30 years later, he had new weapons, time, patience, and a plan 3 decades in the making. The power failure hit exactly on schedule. Young Jay's device triggered and the cascade spread through 3 detention blocks. Emergency lights flickered. Cell doors opened. Alarms screamed. 2,000 prisoners poured into the corridors. Some fled toward the shuttle bays as Day One had instructed. Others attacked the guards. Most simply ran, chaotic and panicked in every direction at once. In the confusion, Taemin walked calmly out of his open cell. He moved through the chaos like smoke, taking an electric baton from a distracted guard, disabling security systems with Young Jay's access codes. He reached the central elevator shaft and began descending toward the lower levels. Alarms blared. Guards shouted. Prisoners screamed. And somewhere in the madness, Jiwoo and Hana worked together to direct human prisoners toward the escape routes. While Young Jay sabotaged more systems to keep the chaos spreading, Taemin reached the vault level. The doors were 4 meters of reinforced metal. The security was military grade, and standing in front of it all was Thelzan with 20 elite soldiers in powered armor. I knew you would come here, Thelzan hissed. Whatever you want in that vault, you will not have it. Taemin looked at the soldiers, at their weapons, at their armor. The first soldier fired. Taemin was already moving. The energy bolt scorched the wall where he had been standing a fraction of a second before. He rolled, came up beside a support pillar and threw the electric baton like a spear. It struck the soldier's helmet at the exact point where the visor met the neck seal. Sparks flew. The soldier's armor locked up. 19 left. The elite guards were trained, experienced, and equipped with the best weapons the Vrelic Empire could provide. But they had learned to fight on battlefields in open spaces, following standard tactics. Taemin had learned to fight anywhere with anything against anyone. He used the vault corridor against them. The narrow space meant they could not surround him or use their numbers effectively. He moved constantly, never standing still, making their targeting systems work for every shot. He grabbed a fallen rifle and fired 3 times, each shot hitting a weak point in the powered armor. 3 soldiers fell, 16 left. Thelzan watched in horror. This was not supposed to be possible. 1 human against 20 elite soldiers should have lasted seconds. But 30 seconds had passed and he had already lost 4 guards. Close formation, Thelzan screamed. Do not let him divide you. But Taemin had already divided them. Half the soldiers were trying to protect the vault door. The other half were trying to shoot a target that seemed to know where they would aim before they pulled the trigger. He slid under their fire, rolled behind them, used their own bodies as shields. A soldier tried to grab him. Taemin struck 3 pressure points in rapid succession. The soldier collapsed. Another fired at close range. Taemin twisted and the shot hit the soldier's own comrade instead. The fight lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, 20 elite soldiers lay on the ground, unconscious or too injured to continue. Taemin stood in front of the vault door, breathing hard but still standing. He was bleeding from a graze on his shoulder and a cut above his eye, but he was alive. Thelzan backed away, his weapon trembling in his claw. What are you? I told you, Taemin said quietly. I am human. He turned to the vault door and began entering the access codes from Young Jay's data chip. The massive door groaned and slowly began to open. Above them, in orbit around Tartarus 7, Admiral Krelvok sat on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the tactical display. 2,000 prisoners were rioting. Half his security force was overwhelmed, and now his sensors showed something approaching from deep space. Ships. Many ships. Identify, he commanded. Human design, his tactical officer replied. 20 vessels. Frigate class. 20 frigates? Krelvok laughed. Destroy them. But the human ships were not attacking. They were broadcasting on open channels. This is the free human resistance. We are here to evacuate our people. Stand down and no one else needs to die. Krelvok's laughter died. He remembered the reports from 30 years ago. He remembered why the Empire had agreed to a treaty instead of exterminating humanity. Because humans were not like other species. They did not break easily. And when cornered, they became very dangerous. Signal High Command, he said. Request reinforcements. Admiral, his tactical officer said nervously. High Command is ordering us to destroy the station. Krelvok turned slowly. What? They say we cannot let the executioner escape. We are to destroy Tartarus 7 immediately. All our soldiers on the station are considered acceptable losses. For a long moment, Krelvok said nothing. He thought about the 3,000 Vrelic soldiers on that station. He thought about orders that sacrificed his own people to contain one human. And he thought about honor, a concept the Empire claimed to value but rarely practiced. No, he said. Admiral, I said no. Send a message to the human ships. Tell them they have 1 hour to evacuate. After that, I will defend this station. But I will not murder my own soldiers. He stood, his command presence filling the bridge. And if High Command has a problem with that, they can come explain it to me in person. Hyunwoo commanded the Resistance flagship Defiance. He was 35 years old and had spent his entire adult life fighting the Empire in small, desperate ways. When Sunmi told him about the operation, about the executioner being alive, he had not believed her. It sounded like a fairy tale, but Sunmi had been right about everything else. So here he was, leading 20 ships against a prison station, trusting that one man could do the impossible. Admiral Krelvok is giving us an hour, his communications officer reported. Then let us not waste it. Minji, coordinate with the station contacts. I want those humans evacuated as fast as possible. Minji, his tactical officer, worked her console with quick efficiency. Shuttle Bay 3 is under friendly control. Jiwoo and Youngjae report they have secured an evacuation route. They are requesting we land boarding craft. Do it. And tell them to find the executioner. We cannot leave without him. Inside the vault, Taimin stood before something that looked like a cluster of crystal spheres floating in electromagnetic fields. The quantum AI cores, they hummed with power, with potential, with the collected knowledge of Earth's greatest military minds. The Vrelic had tried for 30 years to access them. They had failed because the cores required a neural interface that only worked with human brain patterns. Taimin reached out and touched the nearest sphere. It flared with blue light. Information flooded his mind. Tactical data, weapon designs, star charts, defense protocols, everything Earth's military had known before the fall, preserved and waiting. Download to portable storage complete, a soft voice said in Korean. The AI had recognized him. Welcome back, Commander. It has been a long time. Too long, Taimin agreed. He disconnected the cores and placed them in a transport case. They were smaller than he remembered. Lighter. But the weight of what they represented was enormous. With these cores, the Resistance could upgrade their ships, improve their weapons, fight with the tactical knowledge of an entire military civilization. You will not leave here alive, Thelzan said from the doorway. He had recovered his weapon and pointed it at Taimin with shaking claws. I may not be able to stop you, but I can delay you until reinforcements arrive. Taimin looked at him. You could. Or you could let me go and tell your commanders you tried your best. You would live. I would gain 5 minutes. Everyone wins, I have my orders. Yes, Taimin said sadly. And that has always been the problem with your empire. You follow orders even when they make no sense. Even when they lead to death, he moved. Not to attack, but to dodge. Thelzan fired, but Taimin was already past him, running for the elevator with the transport case. Energy bolts struck the walls around him. One grazed his leg. He stumbled but kept running. The elevator doors closed just as Thelzan reached them, screaming in frustration. Taimin rode up through the station, checking the case to make sure the cores had not been damaged. His leg burned where the energy bolt had hit. His shoulder ached. He had cuts and bruises everywhere, but he had what he came for. The elevator opened to chaos. Prisoners and guards fought in the corridors. Fire suppression systems sprayed foam. Alarms screamed. Taimin limped through it all, following the route Jiwoo had described to him days ago. Left, right, down 2 levels. Through the maintenance tunnel, he found them in Shuttle Bay 3. Ji Woo and Hana and Young Jae, along with 300 human prisoners and workers. They had captured the bay and were loading people onto resistance boarding craft as fast as possible. "There he is," Ji Woo shouted. "We have to go. Admiral Krelvok gave us an hour and we have 10 minutes left." Tae Min boarded the last craft with the transport case held tight against his chest. The doors closed. The ship lifted off. Through the viewport, he watched Tartarus 7 fall away, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the darkness. But then Commander Vextar appeared in the shuttle bay with 50 guards. He had found them too late to stop the main evacuation, but he could still catch the last ship. He aimed the bay's defensive cannons at the departing craft. Young Jae saw him on the security monitors. He looked at the controls in front of him, at the override codes he still had access to. He looked at the humans who had already escaped, at Tae Min and the cores that could save humanity. Then he locked the shuttle bay doors from the inside and destroyed the control panel. "What are you doing?" Vextar screamed, realizing what was happening. Young Jae smiled. It was the first time in 2 years he had smiled at a Vrelic officer. "Buying time," he said, and triggered the bay's emergency venting sequence. The atmosphere exploded outward, taking Vextar and his guards with it. Taking Young Jae too. He died with that smile still on his face, knowing he had saved his people. On the Defiance, Tae Min watched through a viewport as the shuttle bay vented. He saw the small figure tumbling into space and knew what Young Jae had done. He bowed his head and said a quiet prayer in Korean, a prayer for heroes who died so others could live. "We are clear of the station," Hyun-woo reported. "All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace." "Wait," Min-ji said. "Admiral Krelvok is hailing us." The Vrelic Admiral appeared on screen. He looked tired, old, and sad. "Human vessel, you have what you came for. Go now before I change my mind, and tell the executioner something for me." He paused. "Tell him that some of us still remember what honor means." Tae Min stepped forward so Krelvok could see him. "Thank you, Admiral." 5 months had passed since Tartarus 7. The Resistance had grown from a scattered network of desperate survivors into something that looked almost like an army. The quantum AI cores had changed everything. Ship targeting systems that used to miss half the time now hit with 90% accuracy. Weapon designs that had been theoretical became reality. Tactical software that could predict enemy movements turned 20 frigates into a force that could challenge 50 Vrelic warships. But most importantly, the cores had given humanity back its hope. Word spread across the colonies. The executioner was alive. The Resistance was winning. It was time to fight. Tae Min stood in the command center of the Resistance base, studying star charts projected in holographic light. Sunmi stood beside him, older but stronger than she had been 5 months ago. Around them, officers from a dozen different cells coordinated operations across 3 sectors. "We are winning too much," Sunmi said quietly. "The Empire will respond." "Let them," Tae Min replied. "We have been reactive for 30 years. Hiding, surviving, it is time to be proactive." "You want to attack their core worlds?" "I want to end this war, and there is only one way to do that." He pointed at the star chart, at the bright marker indicating the Vrelic home system. "We cut off the head." Sunmi stared at him. "That is insane. Their capital has 12 battle fleets defending it. We have 40 ships. "We have 43 ships now," Bora said, entering the room with a data pad. She was the Resistance's intelligence chief, a woman who had survived by knowing things others did not. "And I have information that changes the equation. The Empire has overextended itself. Their supply lines are stretched across 17 sectors. Their military is fighting rebellions on 6 different fronts, and their economy is collapsing because they spent too much building ships and not enough feeding their people." She pulled up files on the hologram. "The Empire looks strong, but it is hollow, like a tree eaten by insects. One good push and it falls," Tae Min nodded. "Then we push." Planning Operation Reckoning took 3 months. It was the largest coordinated strike in human resistance history. 12 key Imperial strongholds would be attacked simultaneously, forcing the Empire to split their forces. While they scrambled to defend everything, the main resistance fleet would strike at the capital. Ji Woo had become a tactical coordinator, his engineering background helping design assault strategies. Hana had trained medics for every ship, preparing for casualties. Dae Won, rescued from Tartarus 7, helped train soldiers using techniques from the old war. Every human in the Resistance had a role. Every role mattered. But the mission everyone wanted was the strike on the capital. That honor went to Taemin and the Defiance along with 20 of their best ships. The night before the operation, Taemin walked alone through the base. He passed by the memorial wall, where names of fallen resistance fighters were etched in metal. Young Jae's name was there among thousands of others. So many dead, so many sacrifices. Having doubts? Sunmi asked, finding him there. Always, Taemin said. That is the difference between a soldier and a fanatic. A soldier doubts. A soldier questions. But a soldier also does what must be done. Why did you let yourself be captured 30 years ago? You could have kept fighting. Maybe we would have won. Taemin shook his head. We would have lost. Earth had 3 billion people. The Empire had 300 billion. I could kill their soldiers, but I could not fight their numbers. So I made a different choice. I saved as many as I could, then waited for the right moment to strike back. He looked at the names on the wall. War is not about winning every battle. It is about surviving until you can win the last one. The day of Operation Reckoning began with fire. Across 12 systems, resistance cells struck at relic military bases, supply depots, and communication hubs. The Empire's command structure fractured as reports flooded in from every direction. Fleets scrambled to respond. Commanders shouted contradicting orders. Chaos spread like poison, and in that chaos, Taemin's fleet jumped into the capital system. 21 ships against 12 fleets, Hyunwoo said from the Defiance's command chair. I hope your plan is brilliant. It is simple, Taemin replied. We are not here to fight 12 fleets. We are here to reach the Imperial Palace. Minji, activate the AI tactical network. Route all ship systems through the quantum cores. Minji's fingers danced across her console. Network active. All ships linked. Tactical software online. Suddenly, the 21 human ships moved like one organism. They dodged incoming fire with precision that seemed impossible. They focused their weapons on weak points in enemy shields. They flew formation patterns that confused targeting computers. The AI cores were not just making them better. They were making them perfect. The Vrelic fleets tried to surround them, but the human ships moved through gaps in their formation like water through cracks. They did not fight to destroy. They fought to advance. Every shot, every maneuver, every decision brought them closer to the planet below. Resistance ships have broken through the outer defense perimeter, a Vrelic commander reported to Emperor Zulmath. They are heading for the planet. The Emperor stood in his throne room, ancient and powerful and used to victory. Send the Imperial Guard. Destroy them. But the Imperial Guard, the Emperor's elite fleet, had been dispatched to 3 different systems to deal with the other resistance attacks. They were 5 hours away. The Defiance and her escort ships reached the planet's atmosphere. They descended through fire and smoke, through anti-aircraft batteries and drone swarms. Ships were hit, some fell, but the core fleet kept going, kept pushing, kept fighting. They landed in the capital city, their boarding ramps dropping onto the palace plaza. Resistance fighters poured out, engaging the Imperial Guard soldiers. But Taemin had one objective. He walked through the chaos, through the battle, straight toward the palace entrance. Guards tried to stop him. He moved like he had on Tartarus 7, like he had 30 years ago. Efficient, precise, unstoppable. Not because he was superhuman, but because he was perfectly human. He found Emperor Zulmath in the throne room, surrounded by his final guards. The Emperor was old, older than Taemin had expected. He looked tired. So you are the executioner, Zulmath said. I imagined you would be taller. I am tall enough, Taemin replied. I came to offer terms. Withdraw from human space. Release all human colonies. Sign a treaty that gives us true freedom, not servitude disguised as peace. And if I refuse, then this war continues. But I think you know how it will end. Your empire is failing. Your people are starving. Your military is stretched too thin. You cannot win anymore. The Emperor's guards raised their weapons. Zulmath raised his hand, stopping them. You think you can threaten me in my own palace? I am not threatening. I am offering you a choice. Peace or the destruction of everything you built. Zulmath laughed. It was a bitter sound. You destroyed 3 fleets 30 years ago. You humiliated us. And then you surrendered. Why? Because my people were dying. And I valued their lives more than victory. And now my people are strong enough to fight. Now victory is possible. But I still value their lives. That is why I am offering peace instead of just killing you. The Emperor stood slowly. He was nearly 3 meters tall. his scales glittering with age and power. He drew a ceremonial blade, ancient and sharp. "You dare come before me unarmed?" "I am never unarmed," Taemin said quietly. Zulmath attacked. He was old, but he had been a warrior once. His blade flashed in the light faster than a human should be able to see. But Taemin saw it. He had spent 30 years learning to see things others could not. He sidestepped the blade, caught the Emperor's wrist, twisted. The blade fell. Zulmath tried to strike with his other hand. Taemin blocked, countered, and suddenly the Emperor was on the ground with Taemin's foot on his throat. The guards raised their weapons. Taemin did not move. "If you shoot, he dies. And then you die. And then this palace falls. Is that what you want?" The guards hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, something changed. Admiral Krelvok walked into the throne room with a battalion of soldiers. But they did not attack. They stood at attention. "Admiral?" Zulmath gasped. "What is this?" "This is a choice, my Emperor," Krelvok said. "I have watched this empire rot from within. I have watched us sacrifice honor for power. I have watched good soldiers die for bad orders." He looked at Taemin. "And I have watched one human show more honor than our entire high command. The fleet is split. Half support you, half support change. If this fight continues, we destroy ourselves." Taemin stepped back, releasing the Emperor. "I did not come here to kill you, Emperor Zulmath. I came here to end a war. You can die today or you can make peace. Choose." For a long moment, the Emperor said nothing. Then slowly he stood. "What are your terms?" The Treaty of Defiance was signed 3 weeks later. Human colonies became free. Reparations were negotiated. The Vrelic Empire agreed to withdraw their military from human space and recognize humanity as an independent power. It was not everything the resistance wanted, but it was enough. 5 years after the treaty, Taemin lived in a small house on Earth in a quiet town far from the cities. He grew vegetables and read books and tried to forget he had ever been called the executioner. Jiwoo visited him one day. Older now,